An agency is getting close to getting rid of 2,000 employees and on top of that, enacting a hiring freeze. This is due to a lack of funding. Congressional action has delayed the worst case scenario, but we're still looking at hiring restrictions and less overtime for their employees. This is happening in the Social Security Administration, the SSA. The consequences will impact millions of Americans, but will it impact you? SSA has warned us we're going to see longer wait times when we go to the offices and when we call the 1-800 number. That's huge because SSA gets about 80 million calls every year. That's on a regular year because if you look back at 2020 during the pandemic, there were over 150 million calls. So who's answering the phone? Well, not everyone. This chart shows us that about 40% of the people that call in never talk to a human. They probably think it's because of their pre-recorded messages are helping their customers find a solution without talking to somebody, but we both know everybody wants to talk to a person. Nobody wants to be on a phone with a pre-recorded message. So that 40% number, that number is going to get a whole lot higher because of the funding issue. This means when you need SSA, when you're trying to get information about retirement benefits, disability benefits, Medicare enrollment, or survivor benefits, then you're just going to have to wait longer. And in some cases, no matter how long you wait, you will never talk to an actual human being. And this is huge because people's livelihood is on the line when it comes to SSI checks, when it comes to getting their disability payments. People depend upon that for food, for water, for utilities. They depend upon that money. So, what's the alternative? Can you just jump in your car and just drive to the nearest SSA office? Well, right now there's over 1,400 Social Security offices all across the country. So there's probably one that you could drive to. But once you get there, you're going to find out you don't have an appointment. How do you schedule an appointment? Can you just talk to them? Well, you're going to have to call the 1-800 number. And now you're back to step one, trying to actually schedule an appointment. Now, the answer for this should be clear, right? Hire more customer service representatives. Hire more people that will pick up the phone and actually talk to you. This is an example of one of these positions. This is for a person who's supposed to be answering the phone in Denton, Texas. How much are they paying? It's a salary range of $38,000 to $49,000 a year. That's not a lot of money for a position like this. And you might be wondering, why not? All they're doing is answering the phone. Well, when they answer that phone, when they get on that phone, on the other side of it is an angry individual that's completely frustrated and outraged about not receiving their benefit or an inaccurate amount for their benefit. There's something wrong with the money that they're supposed to be getting. Or they're complaining about the timeliness of the agency, of the systems in the agencies is not moving fast enough. So the public at times can be very frustrated to the point of using profanity and name calling and just really adding a lot of stress and frustration into your life, even to the point where your anxiety level will increase. That's what a lot of people in this role, they experience. I've talked to several of them. They don't like it. They feel like they're viewed as the enemy, even though they're a GS5. They're a GS5 or a GS6 sitting by a phone. But to the public, you represent that agency. You are what is wrong and why they don't have the right amount of money in their pocket. It's you. You're the enemy. And that's the type of dynamic that's in play here. Now, even if you take the public out of this position, there's still two other huge problems. The other one is training. Nobody's really getting enough training. It's not just this agency. It's most agencies. There's not a highly structured training program for many positions within the federal government. That is something that needs attention. That is something that should be standardized. What you see in other organizations is they really focus on their training development plan. So before you're even expected to perform the task, you have gone through a comprehensive procedure. You're just not thrown at the desk and given a phone and expected to figure it out. And then when we're looking at the systems, a lot of the systems, they're outdated. They need to be refreshed. They need to be upgraded. That's another huge sore point within the agency. So looking at the SSA, it's not just the customer service representatives. I think we can all agree, hey, more people need to be picking up the phone, but there's other jobs here. If you look through usajobs.gov, and many people consider working for the SSA, not because of the rankings, because the rankings are abysmal, they're low, but because there's one in their area. Not everyone is in a huge city. And just like the post office or a VA clinic, you could easily have an SSA office within your small town or within your part of the state. But let's say SSA has lower competition. So not that many people are applying for it. You actually get in. What is it truly like to work within that agency? Well, survey data from thousands of employees will tell you exactly what it's like. Some of the top negative reasons are poor accountability, no goal clarity, and weak performance feedback. Most of these negative reasons within the survey data, it comes down to two things. It's either a high workload and they're stressed out, or it's poor leadership. It comes back to the managers, the supervisors, the executives. And what is leadership? Leadership is the ability to provide purpose, direction, and motivation. It's not the same as just being a manager. It's different. And I can't really place all the blame on the leaders in this situation because they're not properly funded, meaning they don't have enough employees. So when you don't have enough employees, yeah, people are going to be carrying a larger workload. And there's only so much you can do about that. All right, so check this question out. Question number 78. Employees make me feel like I belong. Last year, that was 10%. This year, 9%. It's a single digit. This means to me that 91% of your coworkers, they're not getting along with you. They're not making you feel like you belong to the team. There's personality disagreements. There's conflicts. The team isn't there. This right here is pretty much the overview. It's like a report card. And 25,000 people filled out a survey on this agency. You can see these numbers on the right, they're not good scores. Let's compare that with HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services. You see these numbers here? This is what a good performing agency should probably look like. Now, it's not all horrible because I know some employees that work at the SSA. And one guy in particular, he's actually a supervisor over there. And, it's different. You have all these field offices, you have headquarters, so it really depends on where you're at. Who your supervisor, even if you're a supervisor, who is your supervisor? Because that's going to have probably the greatest impact on not only your work-life balance, but the satisfaction that you have within the agency. Another thing is, because of the funding issue, SSA has been forced to reduce overtime to historically low levels. This is bad for everyone, both management and the employees. So management could fix the productivity level just by pulling the overtime lever and making more people stay later or come in on the weekends in order to perform those duties to get more claims completed. Now, employees, on the other hand, employees had low pay and they wanted to make up their pay. They wanted to increase their salary, so they volunteered to do overtime. Well, not anymore. The agency is operating at 57,000 employees right now. And that's 10,000 less than what they were operating way back in 2010, 14, 15 years ago. They're operating with 10,000 less and expected to do more with less. Now, as I'm looking at these job announcements on usajobs.gov, I cannot believe that each of these positions, they don't have a retention bonus. You need to slap a retention bonus on here. Try to get people to stay. That's the only way they're going to be able to start to turn things around. And looking at the claims that are skyrocketing, it's hard to envision a future in which SSA is actually balancing out those claims numbers. They're going to have to grow by like 20, 30, 50% in order to have a shot at catching up to those claims. I don't blame you if you don't want to work at the SSA. But some people, they welcome the challenge. They see it as a way to get into the federal government, kind of like the Postal Service. But there's a huge difference between SSA and the Postal Service. The jobs in the SSA, they're in the competitive service. That means after 3 years, you would be a competitive status candidate. That means you could leave the government, come back, and you'll be able to apply for competitive service jobs. Postal Service isn't like that because all their jobs are in the accepted service. But they have an interagency agreement, which means they can apply to some competitive service jobs. It just depends on the agency. Now, going through all this data, you could be asking yourself, do the rankings even matter? And I'll tell you from my experience, when I assist individuals that are federal employees trying to go to a new agency, 90% of the time, they're leaving a lower ranked agency to a higher ranked agency. People jump to HHS. People want to work at NASA. Nobody calls me saying I want to work at the Bureau of Federal Prisons, the lowest ranked agency throughout the entire federal government. I never get those calls. So to me, I do believe there is a place when you're considering and weighing the pros and cons of an agency, you have to consider the ranking list. If you are new to applying to government jobs, you probably have a lot of questions on your mind about the federal hiring process, about the interviews, and the salary ranges. If you're interested in that, I did a live stream recently, answered over a dozen questions. So go ahead and check this video out next. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.